Everyone, this is Kim with Abundant Life Tarot, and I am so happy and excited about this unboxing. Super duper thrilled. My heart is full right now. So as I unpackage this, I have been wanting this deck and this particular edition, version, everything, forever. Ever since I learned and knew about the Gaian tarot, I just knew that this was something I wanted in my collection, but I also knew I was not really a fan of Schiffer's edition. And the limited edition, which is still available through the creator's website, I was willing to pay the price, but I still came back to I wanted this edition specifically because of the cardstock. So then I paused. I put pause on purchasing the limited edition, and I just said, okay, I'm just going to keep seeking out and trying to find. This might be difficult because I don't have scissors in here. I do have a knife though, so I might can use that to get in here. Let's see. So I knew that I was going to want to keep my eyes out for the Llewellyn first edition, because that really, really is what I wanted above all. And I rarely ever do this. I rarely ever stock out of print decks because I'm just like, there's so many decks in the world that I don't need. But this is the one out of all decks that I wanted, and it had to be the first edition or it was going to probably be a no-go. So I periodically would just do a Google search and see what comes up as available for the deck, to see if it's actually available or see if it's for sale somewhere. And lo and behold, after all this time, it finally came up as from a secondhand seller on Amazon for a really great price. I couldn't even believe it. And I jumped on it. I almost paid even higher of a price on, I think, was it eBay? I can't remember if it was eBay. I found another one on eBay. It was higher price, and the reviews for the seller, it concerned me. So I was like, wait. But then I lucked up and got this one. So yeah, it's the original Llewellyn box. The United States Postal Service probably did a beating on this, but that's okay because I have plans to put this deck into its own bag. I usually, for these older Llewellyns, I usually just fold them up, fold them in their flattened way and put them away and save them. And just, look, the seller included a bag, which is even better. It's even better because, see, in here, there's no, any inserts to hold it in place, which is fine. I plan on totally using this deck and not worrying about the box. And I'm just grateful that it got here pretty much in as intact as it could be, considering. Okay, so stick that there. Here's the guidebook, Journey Through the Gaian Tarot by Joanna Powell Colbert. I heard that the Schiffer version of this book is better, but you know what? And this is definitely an older Llewellyn guidebook. They've changed since, but I am completely okay with this first edition. I'm going to love it and love it and love it. Oh, the seller is so sweet. A good, honest seller. Prompt shipping. It only took 5 days. That's including a weekend from Massachusetts to California. So I'm going to move that. Hopefully you guys didn't see that. Okay. So now let's look at the cards. These are slightly wider than Llewellyn's skinnier typical tarot size that they now produce, but that's okay. It's still not large by any stretch. Here's the backs. Looks like a little bit glossy. And reasonably sized deck in terms of thickness of the cards and even. I'm acutely aware of this because I have another mass market deck that shall remain nameless that came completely uneven, and it was just a heartbreak because the indie version is so divine. So I had to request a replacement of that deck. So this, having all the cards even like this is great. And oh look, she put them back in order and everything. All right, let's go through the cards. So we're gonna go through them. Like, so I'm really grateful she included the bag, or included a bag. That saves me having to look for one. I had a possible bag in mind, but this one works just fine. Here's the Ace of Air. Two of Air. And we're just simply going through the cards. This is a unboxing flip through, if you will. Here's Three of Air. I love this Four of Air. This incubation period of sorts with this, the little egg sitting, you know, little blue J eggs. I just love that. Five of Air. Six of Air. What I love about this deck is that the creator is from the Pacific Northwest, and I live in California, and I feel like my soul, one of my soul homes is Northern California and like Oregon and probably Washington too, the whole Northwest. And so it's got that vibe, and it makes me so happy because of it. Because I have friends who, you know, this is a practice that they do every day, and this is how they dress, and this is how they look like. And so I just really appreciate that. Seven of Air. Eight of Air. Not your traditional like Rider-Waite-Smith interpretation in terms of like the look of the card, but I'm going to happily look at the guidebook at some point and sit with that card and work with its energies. Nine of Air. I love that Nine of Air. And I love, love, love this Ten of Air. It's like an ending where it's the ending of the season and the birds are now migrating and flying, you know, maybe south for the winter, and there will be a new beginning as the ending. You know, they're going to end their cold, bitter winter feel, or you know, how the chill in the air that comes in fall, that, you know, the birds are like, oh, gotta go, time to go. Sometimes the Ten of Swords or Ten of Air doesn't have to be this big, you know, drag out, backstabbing, coming to an end type of ending and new beginning. It can, you know, have a much softer meaning at times. Not all the time. Trust and believe, I've experienced the rough side of Ten of Air, but I've also experienced the softer side. Child of Air, which is the traditional Page of Air or Page of Swords. Explorer, which is the Knight. Guidance of Air. And what I love about the cards or the images is how it just kind of breaches the border here a little bit. I love that. I just love that so much. That detail. I'm going to have such an easier time. This is Elder of Air. This is King, and I should say this is Queen and King. And I think when the deck is sent from Schiffer, I think they have the the Guardian as the last, or yeah, the Guardian, and then the Elder, like, so the Elder is taking the place, position-wise, of the Queen, and the Queen of this deck is taking the place of the King. So it would be like this. Here's the Ace of Fire. I love that. I really adore this image. Look at the flames breaching the top of that border up there. Yeah, I will not, 3 of Air, I will not have to trim anything. Oh, I love this 4 of Fire. I can just dive right in and start using this deck. 5 of Fire. I love, look at this. I love Llewellyn's cardstock. I may be in the minority here, 6 of Fire, but it shuffles so well that I just couldn't imagine. One of my favorite cards, 7 of Fire. Love her outfit too, by the way. Totally wear this. 8 of Fire. That's a total relatable 8 of Fire. It just shuffles like a dream. And so I just couldn't imagine working with this deck and having that be an obstacle for me. 10 of Fire, this card. Again, if you live in, for me, like living in Northern California, or, and I'm not even like close to where like a lot of these fires. I mean, yeah, actually, yes and no. Last year, or when those big fires were happening, it was kind of scary because it was like, uh-oh, things are getting a little too close for comfort. But most of the time it's not. It's often where these beautiful, beautiful redwood trees are, or where the forest is dense like this. And so, and these are images I see often in my world, sadly. But, you know, what it is. Child of Fire. Explorer of Fire. Guardian of Fire. So diverse, so rich in, you know, diversity, in color, in texture, if you will. I love that there's, you know, animals, people either just sitting there, you know, looking at you, and people who are actively doing something, you know. It just makes for a very dynamic reading experience. I just feel like this deck is one of my soul decks, and I rarely ever say that. Ever, ever, ever. But for as long as I've known about this deck, and people have constantly said, this is the deck that you need to get, you would love it. And I waited and waited and waited for the edition I wanted. It just feels so right. 7 of Water. I cannot wait to start using it right away. 8 of Water. Oh, I love that. 9 of Water. 10 of Cups. This is an interesting one. I mean, because again, remember, 10s are about endings and the promise of new beginnings. So this definitely has that going on. We have a new school of fish floating by together, floating by, you know, the deceased fish here. It's interesting. I get it. It's just an interesting depiction. Here's Page, or Child of Water. Explorer. Yeah, this is so cool. Feels so home to me. I love it, love it, love it. Guardian of Water. Elder. Look at this adorable Ace of Earth. Oh my goodness. 2 of Earth. 3 of Earth. Oh, 4 Five of Earth. This is interesting. This is interesting. This person is here, you see? Living out here in the wilderness. And probably there's like a cabin nearby that he could go, stay in, but he made a choice. Sometimes it is choice. Actually, not sometimes, most of the time. Whether we want to believe that or not, whether we want to embrace that information or not. But Six of Earth. This is cool. I am one of those folks who loves modern tech, so this is just a delight for me. Seven of Earth. Amazing. And you know what? I'm such a goof nugget. It took me forever to realize that the Herb Crafter's Tarot, which I've been studying and working with and embracing, is also created by Joanna Powell Colbert. So it's like, yes, these are going to talk beautifully if I ever wanted to combine them. Eight of Earth. Here she is. Nine of Earth. Got a little bit of, it looks like lavender. I don't know, it might not be lavender. I think there's a flower that this is. It's not lavender. I can't think of it right now, but I'll look it up. 10 of Earth. Gorgeousness. Love this Child of Earth. I love this deck so much. Explorer of Earth. Guardian. Oh, she put in the order now. Let's see. Elder of Earth. Oh, so nice. Okay, so now we have the majors. The Seeker, which is traditionally the Fool. Isn't that amazing? Oh, the Magician. One of my most favorite magicians. The Priestess. Look at that gorgeous Empress energy there with the Gardener. Trying to get it to focus. The Emperor. The Teacher. Oh, the Lovers. The Canoe, which is the Chariot. And Strength. The Hermit. The Wheel. Justice. The Tree. Death. Huh. Wow. Temperance. Bindweed, which is traditionally the Devil. I really like this Devil card. Look at that. And look at that. Just gorgeous. In this instance, I don't mind the white borders at all. Because, again, everything about the deck is just like interacting with, all the elements are working for me. Here's the gorgeous Tower. The Star, which is here, the cover of the book. From what I understand, these are images of people that the Creator knows. The Moon. I mean, that's why there's such a realness to them. The Sun, which is the box here. Oh, I love this Judgment card. Isn't that gorgeous? Awakening. Oh, just amazing. And the World. Gaia, the world. Just amazing. I love it so much. I cannot believe that I got so lucky. And I didn't pay too terribly much. Oh, so gorgeously. I didn't pay too terribly much for it, considering it's out of print. I couldn't really find any other copies. Often they're just selling the book for an exorbitant amount of money, or there's the shifter or the limited edition that's available. And so it's just like, oh, to be able to have this opportunity makes me so happy. And yeah, I'm in a depth year, guys, but I did promise myself for any like wish list item that I find and love and adore, if I find it and it's available in 2020 and it was on my wish list in 2019, and this has been on my wish list for way longer than that, then I can get it. So that's why it's really special to me too. It's like, I had to explain to my husband that this was an absolute necessity. And maybe one day I'll do a reading for him with it. He'll understand why this was a necessity. It's not really a necessity. You know what I mean. You know what I mean. Okay, look. Okay. So I'm not going to really go through the guidebook much, other than I kind of want to just look at the... I normally go through it, but I actually have a meeting I have to jam off to, and I don't really have time. Maybe what I'll do is I'll leave these here, and I'll pause now, and I'll come back and I'll read some excerpts for each of these cards that jumped from this deck. So we'll do that. I'll be right back after the meeting. And this is why I need a clock in here, because it looks like I still have a few more minutes before my meeting. So I'm like, what? I need a clock, or a watch or something, so I can be able to tell time. So I always like to peruse the guidebook. The only reason why I was going to skip was because I thought I have run out of time, but I haven't. I just like to look and see what information is there. I like to, whatever cards jump, see what the guidebook says about that particular card. I may just read this book as a book. I often do that with my guidebooks. I read them as like a text from cover to cover for a number of reasons. And it obviously to get more acquainted with the different meanings of the cards, because this is not, you know, this is not a Rider-Waite-Smith clone by any stretch. I mean, it certainly have those Rider-Waite-Smith elements. But yeah, the meaning of Gaian. Creating the Gaian Tarot. This deck has been a long time in the making. The seed for it was planted in the 1980s when I was working with the Mother Peace Tarot and comparing it to traditional decks. I wanted to create my own deck back then, but the thought of creating 78 separate pieces of artwork was daunting. I worked with the tarot consistently until the late 1990s, after which I set it aside for several years. During that time, I moved to a small island and the focus of my spiritual practice changed. I began to spend much more time outside, observing the place where I lived and practicing wilderness awareness techniques. Just like I had thrown myself into goddess studies and tarot studies, I soon became immersed in studying the native plants, birds, and animals of my chosen home. I gardened, became involved in the local community, and built a straw bale home with my husband. When I took up the tarot again, it was with a new focus and new energy. I felt called to create my own deck. As I meditated of the meaning of each card and the fresh interpretation I might bring to it, I asked these questions. What about the earth? What does the voice of the earth have to say? Where is nature in the meaning of this card? The Gaian Tarot grew out of my relationship with the natural world where I live and the people in my neighborhood and spiritual community. Many of the scenes in the deck are based on sketches from my nature journals and photos I've taken of local landscapes. Almost every animal, bird, or plant in the cards is one I have encountered personally in my naturalist studies. I know their natural history as well as their myth resonances. Raven and Coyote are not only mythic tricksters, but also neighbors. Most of the models for the figures in my cards are friends or friends of friends. I've always loved painting the numinous in the everyday person, and that's what I've done here. The human figures in this deck are both contemporary and mythic in terms of clothing and appearance. Sometimes they are part of this world, sometimes they belong in the spirit world, and sometimes they inhabit the borderlands between the two. In total, it took me 9 years to complete the artwork and companion book for the Gaian Tarot. And I thought that was an interesting bit because the creative process can be a very long one, especially for those works that is tied to our soul purpose. And so, yeah. And so she has, it's such an interesting read, and that's why I want to read it, because she talks about soul lessons with the major arcana, and we've got the Fool, a new beginning is the key phrase. When you get this card in a reading, when you read the shadow side of this card, deepen your understanding of the seeker. So she's got different themes here, like spiritual quest, innocence, childlike wonder, pilgrimage, new beginnings, the wisdom of the fool, spontaneity, simplicity, adventure, taking a risk, alpha, omega. Then she has symbols, white feather in hair, purity, innocence. So in the picture, she discusses the symbol. So the image of the Fool card, she discusses it here in all the different symbols and what it means. The valley, fertility, cultivation, home. I mean, this is an amazing guidebook. Journal questions and affirmation. Well, no wonder. I mean, she put her heart and soul into this. You can feel it. I could feel it calling to me, but it had to be this edition. So I'm going to just look up Four of Air. So this is just so makes me happy. It looks like she divides it up, at least this guidebook, by the aces all together, 2s, 3s, 4s. And then we move to 4s, which is about overall sacred space, boundaries, and limits. That's for sure. Four of Air. And so even here, she goes into like understanding the major four with this themes of structures, boundaries, and stewardship. 4 themes: foundation, boundaries, sacred space, structure, limits, stewardship. 4 of Air. And she gives a little description of this card. And when you get in the reading, it says it's time to create a sacred space for rest, retreat, prayer, and meditation. Take time out to dream, incubate your ideas, and get your mind clear. Keep your boundaries firm and strong. If your nest falls apart, the incubating energy inside is destroyed. During your time out, you may want to keep your special place hidden and safe. Be wary of predators, including inner ones, who may be ready to snatch away your time alone, personal space, or ideas. And when you read the shadow side of this card, you are unable or unwilling to take some time for yourself. Perhaps you worry that your family or work colleagues won't be able to function without you. Perhaps you think you don't deserve what you have, or perhaps outer circumstances seem to be conspiring against you because of your many responsibilities. Your challenge is to make time for yourself. It is utterly necessary for your well-being. And what I always say is the caution with the Four of Swords or 4 of Air is that if you aren't careful and if you don't heed the advice in the message, that you can fall ill or have an accident or have some injury, because it just kind of keeps kind of growing onto itself. And there's always, causal things that happen with our inaction or action when we're confronting something. So that's interesting. Affirmation: I take time to get away to my own little nest where I incubate new ideas and dreams. I love that. So she devotes a whole page to the minors. Now I am definitely running out of time for my meeting, so I won't go through like the 2 of Fire and the 2 of Earth, but we all get it. The 2 of Fire is those 2 of Wands energy. passionless, which I love that she depicted that, because the wands is also about that lust energy, not just about goals and ambitions, but it also deals with those carnal desires that we may have. And then the Two of Earth. This is adorbs. I love this Two of Earth so much. I actually, one of my first cousins, she has, oh my gosh, twins. Oh my gosh, I was like blanking out. They look just like these cute little babies. Anyways, guys, I just want to thank you so much for joining me on this unboxing journey. I'm a little rough at it now because I haven't did them as often as I used to. So thank you for bearing with me, but I'm so excited. I cannot wait to start using it. You're going to probably see this deck a lot in my favorites. So get ready. All right, guys, sending you so much love, many blessings. Please take care, and I'll see you all in the next video. Bye. Thanks so much for joining Abundant Life Tarot.